Welcome back to another episode of Activista Rise Up. I am your host, Dr. Patricia Campos-Medina. You can follow me on all my social media and listen to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and all podcast platforms. Today, you will meet an amazing human being, a dear friend of mine, and a leader in the conservation movement in the island of Puerto Rico. I wanted to discuss Puerto Rico in my show because I consider Puerto Rico my second home. It's my soul place. I go there and I feel like I'm home, but also because it's an example of the resiliency of the human spirit and how, despite great odds and the great impact of climate change on the island, the people are still surviving, are still fighting, and are still keeping the spirit of love and celebration and just pride and culture that signifies Puerto Rico. So with that in mind, there's not a better person to bring that spirit of Puerto Rico, of the love of the island, than my dear friend, my hermana, Katy Rodriguez. Buenos días, un placer tenerte aquí, hermana.
Igual, hermano, un fuerte abrazo desde Puerto Rico.
Yeah, you know, I miss you. I miss giving you a hug. I miss giving people a hug. Yes, I do have a Puerto Rican soul, half of me, but my Latino soul, I miss hugging people, and I miss seeing your great smile every time I go to Puerto Rico. I haven't been able to be there. So before we start and we tell everybody what you do and everything that you have been doing since you returned to Puerto Rico, why don't you tell me how you feeling right now, and where are you? I see you're outdoors.
Well, I'm feeling great. It's Thursday, so we're getting ready for the weekend, and the summer is starting here in Puerto Rico. And I'm actually at one of your favorite places here in Puerto Rico, La Casita de Rones.
Ay, qué rico!
We can't wait to see you and then have you here and Bob and the kids. So can't wait.
We met you there. It's 5 o'clock, so I know you're having a Bacardi or with some drink over there.
Well, they put this close to my table. I don't know if I'll be drinking this today, but it's certainly something really good. But the barrilito should be coming soon. The barrilito. There we go. My favorite one. My favorite.
You were the one who taught me how to drink barrilito, and now I can find it here.
Very good. Whenever you're running low, just give me a call. We'll make sure you have your
I will
serve there.
Well, I always, when I go to Puerto Rico and visit, I love I love getting together with you. I want to be open with my audience that we went to school together at Cornell University, and we are sorority sisters, Latinas Promoviendo Comunidad. So, shout out to our sisters or hermanas. Pero the reason why I have you in this show is because I do admire all that you do in Puerto Rico for the environment, for conservation, and I think it's important for all of us who love the island and here in the mainland, like you call it. There's all the Puerto Ricans who are here to understand that there are efforts to happening in that regards. So tell me a little bit about you. We went to Cornell together. You graduated as an urban planner, but then ended up doing conservation. So tell me a little bit about what led you to the work that you're doing today.
It has been a wild ride. It has been an amazing, amazing ride, and it has taken me different places. After we graduated from Cornell, you were graduating from your master's, and I was graduating from my bachelor's. I spent 1 year in Puerto Rico, working for the municipality of San Juan, working for Sila Maria Calderon, which at that point in time, she had become the mayor of San Juan. And she decided to establish this office, Oficina de Comunidades Especiales, Office of Special Communities, targeting poor communities, abandoned communities in San Juan, in the municipality. So we began doing community work. That was one of the jobs that I've loved the most. It really brought me together with communities and my people. I come from a poor community. I come from Tua Baja Pueblo. But seeing how other communities were living, but how they were organized and how people had the ability to prioritize and establish and present their needs, it taught me a lot. I can tell you, I would do it all over again.
Yeah.
Um, Nevertheless, I really wanted to apply what I had learned at Cornell. So I ended up in Miami doing affordable housing development for almost 10 years. That was amazing. Another wonderful experience. I'm an advocate for affordable housing. I believe in it when it's implemented properly. And it's a need. It's a need that we have all around. From there, I moved on to... Go ahead.
Yeah. I want to go back before we move on to your experience in Miami, because you and I had always been connected for some reason. Wherever I go somewhere, I used to call you and we will get together. I remember when you were working in San Juan for the mayor, I was I was actually sent to organize the referendum for the public sector workers in
That's
Puerto
right,
Rico.
Caribejito, you were staying there, right?
I was staying there, and I remember your dad was still working at the theater, El Teatro Rosado in San Juan.
Teatro
Yes.
Tapia, San Juan.
Yeah,
Yes.
with San Juan. So I remember you working in the poor communities in San Juan, and in La Perla was connected to that, right?
Yeah, La Perla was one of those communities, which is the one that is here in Old San Juan. We had communities like Playita, which is closer to the airport, El Checo, Barrio Venezuela, which is in Rio Piedras. So it literally covered the entire municipality of San Juan.
I remember, because I used to have to go to all those places and talk to people. I remember, we used to talk a lot about, what's there and what's not there. So I appreciated having that perspective. And now La Perla and all those communities are doing so much better. From those days.
There's more publicity and more people visiting them, which is great. Each of them has their own character and uniqueness.
One of the things that I think is illustrated by communities like that is the resiliency of Puerto Rican people. So I always elevate that. But I remember then you moved back to Florida and you were working on affordable housing. So let's pick it up there, because this is all connected at the end, right? When you come back to Puerto Rico.
It all connects, and it connects wonderfully. So I did the affordable housing. Actually, we're a company based in Miami, but we were working throughout the entire state of Florida. And from there, I moved on to academia. And that was a very interesting experience for me, because I went from my clients being mostly families to students. And working with students, it's just something else. Seeing their dreams come true. Just like, one thing is what you and I went through, but we were students. Yeah. But being on the other side and being able to provide them with opportunities. I was actually responsible for getting federal funding to sponsor programs. It was just a thrill. Yeah. I still get messages from my students that I became a doctor. I became a vet. And I start tearing up, because you saw these kids working so hard and being able, being a part of that success that cannot be measured by anything. And it makes me so proud and so humble to have been part of that experience. Nevertheless,
now I know you're working on your doctorate nowadays, so to get back to the academia. So please join me.
Absolutely, I'll be soon. I'm hoping to be Doctora Rodriguez Valle, hopefully within the next 5 years. And I'm gonna tell you later what's gonna be on. So you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Also, I totally agree that part of what is inspired about being in the classroom is perhaps helping the students accomplish their dreams, like other people help us or help me. You and I were part of an Ivy League institution. We were not very well, we were poor, but we were there. So there were a lot of people who help us with the scholarships, with the extra jobs, with just the tutoring. So if I can do that for another student, it just gives me hope, right? That you can make a difference. So,
and I think that's why we end up doing that. You're back in academia, and I think we ended up paying it back, because we were so grateful for the opportunities that we had, and it comes so organically. I
Yeah.
think that we identify ourselves with those students, and we see ourselves reflected there. So it was a wonderful time, and I learned so much with my colleagues, and I think that inspired me to continue, and getting my degrees and furthering my education. But that ride had to stop, and that's why I had to come to Puerto Rico
Yeah,
because
you're one of the few that went to the mainland and then decided that you wanted to come back, which is,
yeah.
you know, which is fabulous. But what led you to that decision?
Well, my father has a lot to do with it. My
He's a
aunt from
wonderful
his
man, by
side.
the way. Yes.
And they always remember you, so they're happy I'm doing this with you today, and they're looking forward, to seeing you guys. Um, my his sister got very sick, and you know that they suffer from kidney diseases in that part of the family. So
Yes.
my aunt got sick, and at the same time, my mother's parents got sick. So my father made the phone call he had never made ever since I left to Cornell, which was, we need help. And Patricia, I was driving to a meeting that day, and my answer came in less than 1 second. I said, "I'm moving back." I don't know what fear within me. I just said, I'm moving back," and he said, "But you haven't." I said, "No, don't worry about it." And
Awesome.
in less than 2 months, I had gotten a job here in Puerto Rico with what I call now my third family, because I have my family, my Cornell family, and I have my Para Naturaleza family now. I came back to help with the family. Unfortunately, my aunt died 2 days after I moved here.
Oh, wow.
I always say I mean, I smile because she had a very particular way of bringing me back to this island, and she was
She,
right.
ha- she had a purpose, and her purpose
She
was to
had
bring
a
you back.
purpose,
Yes.
and
Wow.
that's why I ended up here. I applied for the position as a grants coordinator, responsible for all the government funding, whether it's federal, municipal, local, state, for the organization. And it was something that I had been doing for the college and um, for my other company back in Miami. So it is something that I enjoy, but I had never worked in conservation for natural and cultural resources. So I had the ability of getting the money, but I had no idea about this field. And it has been an amazing ride because it all happened. I had to be here for everything that is
Yeah.
going on. It has
And
happened.
this was early in what year was this? Because this is way before Hurricane Maria and way
Oh,
before everybody was thinking about the importance of conservation and protecting the waterways. So that So what year was this?
this was December 2014. It's going to be 7 years from now. Hurricane Maria, not in sight. Hurricane Irma, not in sight. All these issues regarding, climate change, nothing in sight. I had no idea what was coming.
Yeah. So to me, there was already a vibrant effort in Puerto Rico to do this work, but it wasn't well known. So why don't we tell us a little bit about what does it mean what is conservation and how is that connected to environmental justice, and how is that connected to the idea of improving people's lives in a place like Puerto Rico. So so why don't you tell us a little bit about those connections and how the skills that you brought from the previous work, like, has made you understand the ecosystem of how to do this work in communities?
Well, it is a complex definition, and it can be very simple also. And conservation is taking care of what you have. That's, for me, that's the first definition. Taking care of what you have, the resources that you have, so you can use them properly, um, to assure your future. Specifically, in this case, we're talking about our natural resources, our cultural resources. We're such a small island, Patricia. You know this.
Yeah.
We can get around Puerto Rico in no time. but
In
it is
2 hours, three
so
hours.
rich. There's such diversity. I mean, this is everything packed in this such, in such a small territory. But if we don't if we don't learn about what we have, so there's a point there's the element of education. What do I have as a Puerto Rican here in Puerto Rico? Is besides the beaches, the mountains. What are my ecosystems? The species that live here and only here. That makes us special. The rivers, the lakes. You have El Yunque, which is a national rainforest, but you also have dry forests. You have coastal forests. You have wetland forests. There's so many different ecosystems, such a small territory. Let's learn about that. Second, what am I doing that impacts that, and what are the effects of that impact? For example, when you're constructing, when you're building, construction for some people is great, and I used to be a developer.
Yes.
Become very conscious about when we need to build versus when we don't need to build.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're building close to the coast and you destroy wetland forests. Guess what happens? When the mangroves are gone, when that high wave comes in, you're not going to have that first barrier that is going to protect communities, that is going to protect roads. You're removing that. Nature is providing you with so many resources to take care of you and protect you. And that is something that has to be learned. And then I have learned that. And now I'm an advocate, for people learning about what they have. And this is applicable to anywhere where you live. What are the resources that make your area, your place of living so special? What are important? What is important to you, and what do you want to do to conserve them? Education is a very critical point. And my organization, which is Para la Naturaleza, is an organizational unit of the Puerto Rico Conservation Trust. We are responsible for owning and managing more than 35,000 acres of natural protected areas in Puerto Rico, from coast to the mountains, in Culebra and Vieques. We're just stewards of nature, and making sure that we're not only conserving, but we're educating communities on how to protect their resources, teach other people about how to protect them, and how we can benefit. We have a relationship with nature, and I think that we have lost that relationship. So for us Puerto Ricans, because of the events that we have suffered in the prior years, we're truly learning how to improve this relationship and make it something that is valuable to us. And at the end of the day, we need to be respectful of nature. I think that's a key word here, the respect that we have to offer.
One of the things that I think that that the hurricane sort of rediscovered for Puerto Rico and for us who love the island is that before you didn't think too much about it's an island and we're so close to the ocean, so these things are always going to happen. It's just how we manage and how we prepare for them. I remember you telling me the story of where you were the night of Hurricane Maria. You came back to stay with your parents that night. I remember. Why don't you share with the audience a little bit about the story? Because when you share with me, I was like, oh my God, how would I feel? I don't, can you tell me exactly where you were and what happened that night? So people can get a sense of what was it like to go through that moment?
I think, and we still get very emotional. I don't think we have really recovered from that, but I'm very thankful for that experience. I will always be very grateful. I spent Hurricane Maria with my parents. Remember, 2 weeks prior, we had spent Hurricane Irma. It only touched the eastern portion of the island, the northeastern portion. And we spent it in Tua Baja Pueblo, which is right next to El Rio La Plata, one of the major rivers in Puerto Rico. We know we live in a flood zone. Again, it's a relationship we have always had with Rio La Plata. So we know we live in a flood zone. The house where we live, which is where I live right now. So we were in the house that my grandmother had built. It was built actually in the 1960s. and she built it high enough considering prior flooding events.
Yeah.
So she used past knowledge, applying it to new construction, and thinking, okay, if I build it, I don't know, 6 feet above the ground, it's not gonna get flooded. None of that prepared us for what we went through. Dad and I had just been recently had our transplant surgery.
Yes.
4 months prior. I
For the
gave one
kidney.
of my kidneys to Dad, so we were fresh off the oven. And I remember we bunkered. It's a 2-story house. The house upstairs is concrete but has a wooden roof. The house downstairs is all concrete. So we bunkered downstairs, mom, papi, mommy, yo, and the 2 doggies. And we thought, we're going to be safe. We were very concerned with the house upstairs. We literally thought we were going to lose the roof. So we had prepared ourselves with our bags, everybody with their important documents, and thinking we're going to lose everything upstairs. I remember around 2 a.m., I had already lost signal. Everybody lost signal. We only had the radio. And, the winds really started getting very strong. And around 5-ish, I hear this noise towards the back of the house. I opened the door, river coming in. We hadn't heard it. It came through the night. And next thing I know, water is above our knees. So at this point, where winds are coming down really strong, my dad, who had, he's from Tuabaja, has said this is the strongest event I've ever experienced. And I saw his face, Patricia. I saw Dad's face, and it didn't look good. So I started worrying. I started worrying about my parents. I started worrying about the house upstairs. My parents, you know how they are. They decided to go in the middle of the hurricane upstairs to check on the roof. Those were the 30 longest minutes of my life, because I didn't know what was happening upstairs. They came down. They said everything was fine. The river kept going up. And, we all started crying. We had never experienced something like that. We were very happy we were together, but we were scared.
Yeah.
I was scared the river would keep rising, and you're thinking, I'm not thinking about myself, if I go right now, I lived a great life, but I'm thinking, Mom and Dad, why can't I do to protect them? So it's a night that we still remember, and it was hard. We had no communication. We had no way of telling anybody that we were safe. And that's really scary. And this is already not having power, no electricity, no water, nothing. And around 6 a.m., the radio was no longer working. So we realized that at that point, the only thing that we had was ourselves and our immediate community.
So I remember it took over a week to get to people to connect, and so that's when I think about the resiliency of that community, local communities, and what it must have felt like to have to be on your own and do that. So when you say you only had the community, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Key. This is very key. From the moment where the hurricane is winding down, you hear the silence, but you hear the mumbling around. You know that the only thing left is your immediate community, the streets around you. Tuabaja is a very small town, and I'm sure this happened everywhere else around the island. Communities were key in this search of resiliency and empowerment. People neighbors making sure we had enough to eat, water to drink. Whatever we didn't have, somebody else provided. Whatever somebody else didn't have, we provided. And this happened all around.
Yeah.
The government couldn't respond. I mean, and I don't blame the government at that point. It's very different. I mean, we were hit by something we had never seen.
Yeah. Yes.
And this is why, Patricia, it is so important for communities to be prepared, to have safe rooms, to have community centers that have solar powered rooms that have batteries,
Yeah.
that have, if anything that you can help people there right at the moment. Why? Because access may be blocked, and it happened. Bridges
Yeah.
went down, roads weren't accessible. So even if you were able to reach a policeman, a fireman, what if they can't get to your house? So you need to make sure that that nit, that note that is central to your community is prepared to at least take care of immediate things: water, food. Let's charge cell phones. So we have radios. Let's find a way to communicate, and that has to come from within the community.
Yeah.
That is key, and that is one of the things that we're doing right now as part of Para la Naturaleza. We're building a number of community resilience centers because of what happened with Maria.
Yeah.
Because we need people. We as a community, you need one where you live. You
Yes.
need a place where you could all gather, where you could plan, where you could find comfort, but also, okay, what are we doing from now on? Who can do what? But that is very much needed, and that power comes from within the community. And Maria taught us that.
And I think that that's the biggest lesson for all of us to learn from Puerto Rico, the ability to go back to who are we and how we are helping each other, and also translate that into the future. Because one of the most exciting things that I have seen in Puerto Rico is communities building their own power, solar power centers, communities building their own agricultural areas so that they can have food. And I know that Naturaleza has been sort of supporting some of those efforts in addition to conservation. So, how can people support those efforts in Puerto Rico for local communities? Because at the end of the day, the politics, and we'll talk about that next, are what they are. But while those get solved, people have to survive. And I think that that's the lesson of Maria for us. That we need to learn more for how people in Puerto Rico and the island survive.
Right now, one of the ways that these efforts can be supported, particularly for communities, and of course, I'm going to support my organization, Para Naturaleza. We have what is called the Solidarity Fund. And if you go to our website, you're going to find that it is a capital campaign, a campaign actually, that we started. We identified five main components that are critical right now for Puerto Rico: reforestation,
Yes.
communities.
Yes.
We have agroecology. We have paths or green areas where people can walk, where people can recreate themselves, and cultural resources. Why communities? And we go back. Communities are the center of everything. These are the people that know how things happen within your neighborhood, the resources that we have, the needs that the people have. So through the Solidarity Fund and the funds that are raised, each community, they establish where, those funds, what can they be allocated for? But that is a process that goes throughout the community. And then we are divided in 5 regions para Naturaleza. So each of those regions is working with a community or communities that have identified their needs or projects that they want to work on. And those are in part supported through the Solidarity Fund. So that is one excellent way to get funding directly to the community. We also have other local NGOs that are really doing the great work, and I have to speak about that. We have great NGOs in conservation that work together with us in many projects. I think that aside from reading the news, Patricia, because sometimes the news about Puerto Rico can be sometimes dated, but really connecting with the people that are here. We can talk about, for example, Yasmin Hernandez, who
Yes.
graduated with us from Cornell. She's another great. You need to interview her. She's doing amazing work here in Puerto Rico.
I know her art. I know she moved. I read an article that she moved back to.
Well, she's been writing a lot. And Yasmin has been writing about rematurating to Boriquén and her experience as a Puerto Rican that had never lived in Puerto Rico. And she actually moved here a couple of months before I did. So we have kind of share. We're sharing this year as our 7th anniversary in Puerto Rico. But these are the people that also can tell the story from this end about what we have lived here. So that's another way of finding out what is really going on in Puerto Rico. Because it's not only about the bad things that have happened, it's also about the great things that we're doing. So we can better prepare and we can have, a life that is equitable and good for everyone here in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. I think that for many reasons, people do come to the mainland to work or to reunite with their family. But I think it's important to support those like you and Jasmine who go back and try to give back to rebuilding and creating this sense that, there is a future that is more than just tourism for Puerto Rico. There's
Yeah.
actually communities that are resilient and living. In the context of and that's important in the context of the national politics. And you guys survived neglect from the Trump administration. And now perhaps you're getting some support from the Biden administration. I hope that helps some of the more big structural issues. But how is Puerto Rico dealing with COVID-19 and the crisis? And why should people come and visit right now if we can? Because I miss going, I miss all of you, I miss the spirit, the sun. So should people come back right now to Puerto Rico?
All right, let's talk about that because that is a wonderful question. First, I think that for us Puerto Ricans, it's important, regardless of what administration is, to have our priorities clear and have a united front. And that's something very difficult to reach. But I think that some events that we have experienced have led us to realize that we can unite when we want, when we identify that there is something wrong.
Yes.
We were able to remove a governor from office.
Yes, you did.
And that was a very powerful statement. I think applying that to other areas of our life here in Puerto Rico, we're very resilient people, Patricia. We're strong people, but we need to do better at uniting and really identifying. There are many things that we can addressing those that are critical to us. Visiting. The economy here, it has been suffering a lot from many different areas, and that is another episode, another entire topic.
Yeah.
But if people are willing to come to Puerto Rico, first, hey, we're all wearing our masks here. I'm not wearing mine right now because I'm in an interview, but I think that respecting our laws and respecting our people, that's the first great thing. We are very happy to see that people are coming to enjoy our tourism and support us, support our local businesses like this one right here, support other local businesses around the island. But our people are working a lot. Right now, I have people here that have been working double shifts, and it's hard. And
well, I read that Puerto Rico has reached 38% vaccination rate, which is a good number. You're doing better than we are in the mainland. So, yes, we go there, follow the local rules, and respect the effort of the local community and
support local establishments. It's funny because people come here and they go to chain stores that they have in the U.S. and you're
like, there's some beautiful art in Puerto Rico. Yes, some local designers. I love the jewelry that I get sometimes when I go to Puerto Rico.
Exactly. Support local rum. Very important.
Yes.
Go around and enjoy the island. We're ready to welcome everybody.
Yeah.
In a manner that is respectful.
Well, yes, I mean, it's an economy that is not dependent in tourism, but it's figuring out how to be to be able to support itself from other areas. So supporting the efforts that you do is important as well. So tell me, and we're about to wrap up, and I have enjoyed this, and we will encourage everybody to donate to La Naturaleza. And if you have the list of other organizations that are doing work, please send it to us, and we will list it on our site. But
Yeah.
what is one thing that you have learned, you know, about yourself since moving back to Puerto Rico
Wow.
that you wouldn't have, find out about yourself being in the mainland?
Well, that's what I'm still learning. I discovered that I'm stronger than what I thought, that nothing is permanent, nothing, absolutely nothing. Um, that I moved here with just 6 boxes and the 2 dogs. So I packed 20 something years of my life there, and that was the biggest lesson. You don't need much, but this relationship with nature, it's critical.
I
It,
had
it
I had seen you. I have seen you grow. I have seen you change. I have seen the peace and your connection to the earth, just making you whole. And I had really appreciated that, seeing you grow in that way spiritually. So I want to attest to that. And I always say, like, that was the best decision you ever made. And it keeps pulling me back to keep going to Puerto Rico, my second
Hey,
home.
we're ready to have you guys here as permanent residents. So please come and join me.
Another part of your experience is that you are a writer. I do read some of your stuff that you put, and I always think that is part of your spirit. But you actually got placed in an anthology. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how that happened and the name of your book? And I'm gonna read it because that's so exciting. I'm so happy for
Well,
you. Yeah.
I'm gonna get you a copy, but this is again, and everybody keeps telling me that you should really write seriously. And I tell them, but I write. I'm like, no. You're creative writing. You really need to focus on that. So I love writing short stories. I
Yes.
actually I try to put my life in short stories, and they're always related to humor because at
They're
the end of
always
the
funny. Yes.
day, I have to laugh about everything that happens. But I wrote this story. It was the first Dine Out. It was around May. Uh, the government had lifted. It was May or June. The government had lifted some of the restrictions. So I went with one of my good friends to dinner, and we were so excited. Um, but many things happen. You get together with good friends, and then you have a couple of drinks and enjoy good food, and you kind of like start recatching on everything that was happening, and the conversation was so great, and so many things were happening around us that I ended up getting home, and in 10 minutes I wrote the story. um, and it was a combination of social media now is really has been our outlet for everything that
Yes.
has been happening.
Yeah.
So it has a context of social media, it has a context of the past, and it was written in literally 10 minutes, um, making of a sad story something hysterical. And then the following week, I see an ad for writers to send their short stories in for a contest, and if they won, they would be published. So I
You
received the
did.
notice that,
Yes.
and I'm like, oh my God. But then you start thinking, oh my God, all these things I wrote about, people are going to read.
Yes.
And I said, you know what?
Yeah.
Que sea lo que sea.
Yeah.
So it's actually a new publishing company, Ediciones en Serio, in Puerto
Yeah.
Rico. They're a
Yes.
local business.
Awesome.
And it's
And
called El Humor es Cosa Seria.
yes, and
Humor
it's
is
a hilarious story. So everybody should look for that book. El humor es cosa seria.
So
Uh,
I'll send you the link and I'll send you a copy, an autographed copy. But you're gonna find stories there even from Hurricane Maria. So these are great. These are great, and you know what? It teaches about Puerto Ricans that we can still find humor in everything that's happening. So
Everything, yes, and that is to me what was special about the book because that's the spirit of the Puerto Rican people, the spirit of Puerto Rico. Like even in very difficult times, you guys just embrace each other and have fun and just show love to all those around you. So let's read this story, everybody. El humor es
absolutely,
cosa seria, and look for Kathleen Rodriguez's story in the book. We will share the link, and let's just get keep supporting the spirit of Puerto Rico, keep supporting the island, keep supporting the reforestation efforts and the conservation efforts for those who live there and those of us who visit, to be able to have what Puerto Rico has given the world for another thousands and thousands of years. So
Absolutely.
I thank you, Kathy, for that work,
Thank you, Pat.
por
Thank
your friendship for so many years, por la hermandad que hemos
you, Armanda.
tenido por tanto tiempo. And you can count on me for anything, you know, and once I go back, we can go have another barrilito.
You bet. Absolutely. Barrilito. We actually have to go to Barrilito. We have to go and visit the distillery. So
I never been to that one. So yes, we're on.
we have
We're
a date.
on. Yeah.
We have a date. But thank you for the opportunity. And actually, thank you for always thinking of Puerto Rico so much, Patricia. Thank you.
Mi segunda casa.
That
Yeah.
is wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Muchas gracias, hermana.
Gracias, hermana.
Yeah.
Mucho amor desde Puerto Rico.
Mucho amor como mercado.
Mucho amor. mucho amor desde Puerto Rico. And we can't wait to see you guys down here.
Okay. The island of Puerto Rico has survived national disasters. It has survived neglect by the US government because at the core, the people of Puerto Rico are resilient, and the island is resilient because it's connected to the roots, to the earth, and is fed by the water around it, by the trees and the forests around it. It is our responsibility to help support those who are fighting to preserve the ecosystems and the natural beauty of the island. So today, the work that Kathy does with Por la Naturaleza is just one example of the many efforts going on in the island to make it self-sufficient and make it more self-reliant, and to help the people who live there transition into more self-reliant forms of energy, and to protect their waterways and to protect their future. So join me in supporting La Naturaleza, join me in supporting efforts of conservation in Puerto Rico, and just join me by traveling there and supporting local businesses, and as well as supporting the local folks who are trying to make a living in the island and welcome us all the time with open hands. Thank you for listening to Activista Rise Up. I am Dr. Patricia Campos-Medina, and one act, one contribution can make a huge difference in any cause that you believe in. And I believe in conservation and believe in supporting and protecting our environment. Thank you for listening to this show. See you next time.